Hey everyone, Jason here from Off the Beaten Path, and welcome to the next video in our Mt Pinnibar, Mt Gibbo trip video. So we're starting this time today from the top of Mt Pinnibar, where the last video ended. We're heading back down the Mt Pinnibar track and then onto Wheelers Creek Log Road, marked there on the map in blue, across to Mount Anderson, which doesn't have a trig point marker or a cairn or anything, and then up to Mt Gibbo, and then out via the western side. The intention was to go down Boar track to Mt Sassafrass and out that way. As you'll see, that's not what happened. So instead we headed out via Paddy Joy down to Wheelers Creek Hut, which has been rebuilt since the 2019 bushfires, which is great to see, and out via O'Hagan's camping area. So great, another great trip. Gibbo is always fun. My first time doing it from this direction. Massive big rock step on Gibbo, as you'll see, that I've driven down before but never up. This was the first time. So here we are heading off of Mt Pinnibar, and what a view. Never gets old. One of the things I love about getting to places like this is that view, and you can see, so this was recorded late December. You can even see still, it's hard to probably tell, particularly on this camera view, you can still see some snow there on the tops of those mountains looking back towards the Kosciuszko National Park. So just amazing. You know, you've got this amazing landscape here in front of you in the foreground. You've got the high country just falling away in front of you, and then Kosciuszko and the snowies in the distance there. It's hard to pay attention to where you're actually driving. Just amazing landscape, and it never gets old. I always enjoy any time I get to spend up in the Victorian high country, yeah, look, I'd relocate my office there if I could, which is tempting. So yeah, heading back down. It's a short run from Pinnibar down to the Turnoff to Mt Gibbo, just about 2.5 k's, something like that. A few little rock steps here and bumps on the way down off Pinnibar, but really you're kind of just following the road, enjoying the view on the way down here. You can see the Tongrogan Valley in the distance down there, that little patch of green. And as I said, without too much ado, we're in almost no time at all, even less thanks to the magic of video editing. We're at the turnoff to the Mt Gibbo track. So nice sort of steep track here. This very top section is not so steep, but it does drop off very, very steep. I know the first time I drove this coming the other way, I was a little bit put off and wondered what it was going to be like. As is always the case, the onboard camera here doesn't really do this any justice. And after this next little corner down here, it does get a little bit steeper. Slow and steady, first gear, low range. Because that's not as low as it should be in the Pajero, a little bit of brake is also required, but those of you with good low range gearing would have no need for the brake probably in this situation. So you can see there, after you go over that hump there, it does get a little steeper and all the way down to the bottom. Good surface though, no big rocks, no big ruts or anything. So most of this track through here, until you actually get to the Gibbo climb itself, is pretty straightforward and easy to drive. Certainly easier than the Pinnibar section that we drove in the last video to actually get up here. It's generally a really nice run, bit of a mix of some ridgeline tracks with some forest, and then some other tracks with a bit of bush, and then some very open sections when you get down towards some of the logging areas. So yeah, a little bit of a mix of everything. And yeah, there was a little bit of water around. As I said, it hadn't been raining recently, but in certain areas, I don't know if it's aquifers, springs sort of filling those up, or just a bit of clay on the ground holding the water. You can see this section here is fairly well bushed in. Not a lot of space here to overtake if you run into somebody coming the other way. I mean, there's the odd spot where you could probably make it work, like there on the left, but some decent sections there where overtaking is a bit of an issue. We did find a good spot on the track here to stop for lunch, and so while I was cooking some lunch up, Matt had a bit of a go with his drone just to test that out and see how it goes, and tried out a few of the different features. So it gives you a bit of a snapshot there of the track ahead. Shows you as the drone's rising up there, the vista that's ahead of us in the high country. And you can see this part of the high country is still very much affected at this altitude from the bushfires that came through in 2019, and I'm pretty sure that's Gibbo there in the distance. So the first one I think is Mount Anderson, and then the second one behind that is Mt Gibbo, which is where we're heading to before heading back down and out and heading home. Just amazing views. So pretty cool to have a drone along on this trip to get some of this footage. Obviously you've got to be selective when we use the drone outside of the national parks. And there's Matt just practicing with the follow me function on the drone, where you set it to lock on to someone or something and it follows that person. Working up an appetite for lunch. So after that quick lunch stop, back on the tracks, and as you saw we had that short section of forest here before opening up into more of the area where the logging activity has been occurring. The track through here in sections is almost hardly formed. There are a few little ruts and washouts here and there that the water's created over time. And similar to that section earlier, for whatever reason, there's always one or two spots along here that are holding a little bit of water, but they're never particularly soft. At least they haven't been when I've come through. And yeah, forestry and parks did a huge amount of work to get these tracks reopened after the bushfires. There were trees down everywhere, and you can see a lot of dead trees still around in this area. And as we crest this rise, you sort of get a bit of a glimpse there of the track up ahead, heading up first to Mount Anderson and then to Mt Gibbo. A little bit of an erosion gully down this section of track, caused by the water running down, likely from those storms late in 2022. But as you can see, nothing particularly difficult here. A little bit of a climb here, some loose gravel and all, but yeah, it's a long, steady climb on the way up towards Mount Anderson. And all in all, quite manageable. Managing to keep a pretty decent pace, a little bit bumpy here and there, but this section is not super steep. It's just a really long, steady climb with that little steep section right at the end coming up that you can see. So look, it's a reasonably long section of video this, but I've kept it in just to sort of show you some of the climbs. There's a couple that are a little bit like this where they're just really long, steady climbs with a little kicker at the end. Add a little bit of interest. You can see coming up here a couple of little small sort of maybe rock steps, rock shelves. Probably don't quite really qualify as steps. A little bit loose there, so just a little bit more mumbo required. But again, let the car do the work, and we've climbed up over that one. And this next one here, judging by how much that bottom moved, I think we can call that a rock step. And you can see the centre of the track there is washed out a little bit. So quite a bit more interesting as we get up, but none of this is difficult. Certainly not slippery like some of the sections on the Mt Pinnibar track were, really slippery and loose. It's all pretty firm, pretty stable. Just choose your line and the vehicle will hold the line and drive up it. Again, you can see the well-established wheel patterns there on this track. Most of the big rocks have been pushed off the track from time to time. And just a little bit of a steeper climb here. These I wouldn't even call rock steps. You can see a lot of suckers starting to come through with the regrowth post the bushfires. So I think something to think about is that, you know, these few years following the bushfires, you get some amazing vistas and views. It's not always going to be that way. You're not always going to have the view that you're enjoying at the moment. So it's a great time to get out in the high country and enjoy those huge vistas that really you're only going to see them from the tops of certain mountains otherwise. So yeah, as you just saw on the screen there, and I'm pretty sure I was correct this time with that notation that this hill is the last approach to the Mount Anderson summit, which is not actually that far from Mt Gibbo itself. Again, this is just a really long, steady climb up to the top. Really good traction and not particularly difficult along the way at all. So I'd be in low range, second gear, no diff lock in, just good steady throttle control here to keep the vehicle moving and the wheels not spinning. And again, I can't remember who it was that told me, but it seemed like good advice at the time and has served me reasonably well. Situations like that where you've got a rut in the track or whatever, put the wheels on the high spots. And yeah, I'm surprised there's not some sort of a marker up here to mark the Mount Anderson summit. It's possible that it was a timber sign. I know Gibbo used to have a timber sign up on top of it pre-bushfires, so it's possible that Mount Anderson had something similar. But yeah, look, honestly, I guess I haven't gotten out and looked for a plaque mounted in the ground somewhere. There could be a survey marker or something like that. Might be an excuse to go back and check it out again. So you can see what I mean about these hills though. They just keep going and going. Like you're coming up there and you think you're getting to the top of Mount Anderson, you come around that corner and it's like, oh, there's one more climb yet, we're not at the top. And that's fairly typical for this part of the high country. So if your car's heavy, you certainly will find it working pretty hard on these long hauls. And you can see right off the edge of the track there, just look at that view across the rest of the high country. I did have a chance here to jump out and catch some footage of Matt coming up in his Prado. Taking it nice and steady and making it look very easy. So from here, from Mount Anderson, we're now heading up to Gibbo. Gibbo is not actually that much higher than Mount Anderson, only a couple of 100 metres. It's a fairly straightforward run from Mount Anderson across to Mt Gibbo. and it's really only the very last section of the climb up on Mt Gibbo that's got a couple of challenges in it. There is a beeline. These days I'm not sure that beeline is really that much easier, but you'll see that shortly. Again, this section is just a nice, steady, long climb, quite drivable. No lifting wheels, no spinning wheels on this section, just nice and steady. And looking ahead there to Mt Gibbo. And yeah, as you just saw on the screen there, this is the eastern approach to Mt Gibbo. And it starts off pretty easy, but it doesn't take long before it starts to get pretty interesting. You start to see some larger rocks on the track, a few rock steps. Track's a little bit more challenging to get some traction on, and yeah, the whole thing is just a lot more interesting. And you get over that first initial section, you think, okay, well, we've done that now, we'll be fine. And initially the rest of this all looks pretty manageable, as you'd say, but you soon find out that no, there's quite a bit more fun to be had just yet. So you work your way through that initial section, and at this point, like, you feel like you're getting really close to the summit and you can just about touch it, and it looks like it's going to be an easy run until you get up over this next little rise and you see the last section sort of up ahead of you. So look, while we're just driving this, in terms of heights, Mt Pinnibar is actually, I believe, the highest at 1,772 metres according to HEMA. Mount Anderson is 1,579 metres, and Mt Gibbo is 1,757 metres. So about 15 metres or so lower than Pinnibar. So over those couple of small rock steps, and you can really sort of notice here, I think Gibbo's a little bit further away from other taller mountains. You really start to feel like you're getting up quite high, even though it's not quite as high as Pinnibar. And then you start to get a picture of what's up ahead here. And that A-line is straight ahead. Up, you've got this initial sort of rock hump to get over, and then there's quite a big rock step or rock shelf. And then the B-line on the left-hand side there, I think a lot of people have taken that, and that's been churned up, and there's some good wombat holes in that. So yeah, not a lot of good options. So I've decided to tackle the A-line. That's what we're here for, isn't it? So the inset video is from my onboard GoPro, and we've got this external footage as well from Matt's drone, which is pretty cool. So you can see the traction control's doing its thing, and I've got to this big rock step and just tried to push it up there. And we've got up, but we've got all four wheels spinning. We just don't have traction to get up. Now look, I think if I'd given it a bit more momentum when I first went up there, I probably would have made it up. But I'm trying to drive with a little bit more mechanical sympathy than maybe I have done in the past. Maybe make this transfer case last longer than the last one. You haven't seen that video yet. Coming up. Yeah. So anyway, I repositioned, tried an alternate line. Now what's happened there is I've ended up driving across the B line. Now the reason that has happened is when I haven't made it up the first time, I put the rear diff lock in, and then as it's got traction and lifted me up that rock step, the front wheel's lifted, and the drive from the rear wheels has actually pushed the car around to the left there. I did have the wheel turn that way a little bit, yes I know, but I could actually feel it when I was in the car, the rear just pushing it around. A little bit like what happened to Brent from Den Monkey on the Camp Creek Road video, which was, I think, the last video uploaded before this one, where the drive from the rear diff locks and the fact that they don't really want to let you steer has had an impact on how the vehicles move. So again, I'm finding that I'm going back to not using the rear diff lock as much as I used to and relying on the traction control, because honestly it's pretty damn good. So last loose little scramble here, and we're up to the summit of Mt Gibbo. That rock cairn on the left hand side there is the summit marker for Mt Gibbo, and look at that view. So fortunately here I had time to run back down with one of the GoPros to get some footage of Matt driving this, and he's going to show you how you should drive it. So this was Matt's first time up Gibbo, first time actually even seeing this obstacle, and he's picked a brilliant line. So a little bit of hesitation there on that first initial rock step, but that's about the only time you're going to see that. As he comes up here to the big main rock step, he's looked for a line, and look, a little bit of wheel spin there just at the start. Traction control sorted that out, and he's picked a brilliant line and just driven up that like it's a ramp. Really nicely done. Really nicely done. And good throttle control here. You can see he's just rolling over the tops of these rocks, keeping a nice steady speed. Probably trying to let the poor old cameraman, who's not as fit as he should be, try and keep the vehicle in frame for as long as he can. Tell you what, it's a quick way to find out how fit you are is to start walking up and down these alpine mountain tracks. And here we are up on top of Mt Gibbo, parked up there just enjoying the view. It's one of my favourite views from Gibbo. Pinnibar's great, don't get me wrong, it's really good, but I don't know, something about Gibbo I just really like. You know, the first time I ever came here it was blowing an absolute gale, and it didn't seem that hospitable, but every time I've been back it's really turned it on for me, and I just love it up here. I really, really do.
It's hard for me to really see up where you were, but the rock sliders in the rear bar have once again done their job.
So yeah, a few new battle scars on that rear bar, and the rock sliders from that attempt coming up that rock step there, doing their job. That rear bar has been one of the best things I've added to the vehicle, bar none. Pajero's got a really big back end on them, sticks out a long way, and it's prone to just hitting on lots of things. So here we are heading down the western side of Mt Gibbo, and as I said in the intro, the intention here was to head down to the Wild Boar Track and then around to Mt Sassafrass. Now I did have a problem. What you're going to find here in a minute is that we teleport a fair way because I lost a bit of footage off my GoPro with an SD card problem. So we do get some of this going down here. This is a long, steady climb. The western side of Gibbo is a lot easier than the eastern side of Gibbo, so if you're thinking about doing this trip and you're not sure about tackling some of the harder bits, the easiest way to do this is to start from the Benambra-Corryong Rd and come east and finish at Tongrogan, rather than doing it the way we've done it today. So here we've jumped about 10-12 Ks, because as I said I lost that footage, and I'm actually using my Hero 7 GoPro on a stick out the window of the car, so rather than mounted. Yeah, it is what it is, and we're on the Wild Boar Track, and the intention was to go through to Mt Sassafrass. As I said, I've done this run a few times, it's really nice.
So
and you get this.
The Silky was awesome on the last tree. This one's a bit bigger, and without a chainsaw we're not keen to tackle this one, so we're going to so this is on the Wild Boar Track. You can see how big it is. So we're going to turn around and take the Paddy Joy Track and head out that way. Hopefully that's a bit better. Fingers crossed.
So yeah, look, that was a bit of a no-brainer there. Probably could have spent the next hour or two tackling that with the silky and the axe that I have on board, but there was no need. We weren't that far past the turnoff to the Paddy Joy Track. I've never done that before. I've never been down to the hut down there, Wheelers Creek Hut, so it was just a good excuse to go, you know what, let's just go a different way. And nothing wrong with having a plan B. So yeah, a couple of k's back along the wide Boar track, we turn left and head north on the Paddy Joy Track, descending down towards Wheelers Creek. And again, you can see here, this is a section still well and truly recovering after the bushfires of 2019. A lot of fuzzy trees with new growth all over them. And it's not too long before we're into a bit of a steady descent here. The Paddy Joy Track itself is actually a pretty straightforward track. It's generally in good condition. No big rock steps or loose rock or anything like that at all. Very, very drivable. I think whether you're driving up it or down it, it's not going to present too much of an issue. So coming in on the Wheelers Creek logging road to Wheelers Creek and then up the Paddy Joy Track to get access up to Mt Gibbo could be a really good way of going. Wide Boar Track's pretty drivable as well, excepting the odd tree that might be down across the track, as was the case here. So you can get a pretty good idea from that shot exactly where we're heading. Clearly there's a valley up ahead. The river's probably in the bottom of the valley, as these things go, and we're going to find our way down there. Always a good sign when you can see that track disappearing in front of you as you come around the corner. But honestly, this is not super steep. It's less steep than a lot of the sections on the track to Mt Gibbo, and very, very manageable. I don't think I even changed back to low range for this, to be honest. It probably looks about the same. You can tell there from the speed I'm picking up that I'm not in low range, and you can see there it runs out fairly quick into a nice long flat section. So this section of track was a lot like this. You got these sort of long descents that weren't super steep, and then some long flat sections running out from the bottom of them before the next descent actually came along. So really, really comfy, easy drive through here. Some amazing scenery. Not sure this counts as a creek crossing. I mean, it's flowing water, so maybe it does. Almost gets the sidewalls wet. Followed by a huge bog hole. But yeah, as you get down towards the bottom, before you actually get around, you sort of climb up over the hill and then work your way back down to the creek from there. So one of those situations where you go down, then you go up, and then you go down again to actually get to the creek crossing. Here we are on that final downwards approach down to the Paddy Joy Creek, which flows into Wheelers Creek. So that's the Paddy Joy Creek there. This is a nice little crossing, reasonably good entrance, you know, a little bit worn out. It's not wide, it's not deep, and I don't think it would ever be that wide or deep. You can see a little bit of erosion there on the right, but it's pretty manageable as far as river crossings go. You're kind of coming out of it before you're even getting into it, really. So look, I stopped there for all of about 3 seconds. Not long enough to let anything cool down, as you'll soon see from the steam coming off the front wheels. There it is. Something I need to get better at doing is just being a little bit more patient and letting things cool down a little bit more before just plunging straight into that cold mountain water. Don't know if it's true or not, but it's certainly been suggested to me that that can have an impact on the life of the wheel bearing hub assemblies in the Pajeros. So something to think about, because at the moment I'm replacing those every 30 to 40,000 Ks. That was the Paddy Joy Campsite there on the left. I reckon that'd be a cracking campsite. I reckon that'd be a great spot next to that little creek to camp up for a night or so, and might have to try and get back there and do that. Heading from Paddy Joy Campsite across to Wheelers Hut again. You've got to go up to go back down, so you're sort of up over a hill and around the corner to get down to Wheeler's Hut. It's not particularly far, and when you're almost there, you do run into Wheeler's Creek Road or Wheeler's Creek Track, which is the main track or road coming up from the hut, and that would be an option as well. That joins on to the Benambra-Corryong Rd or something, so it won't get you straight up to Mt Gibbo, but not too far away from it, and that would be an easy drive. You can see the river crossing there straight ahead with the bridge. The access to the hut is just on the left here. So decided to duck in and have a look, and that's actually Wheeler's Creek there. It's a little bit bigger than the Paddy Joy Creek, and as I said earlier, and you can see there on the screen, this hut was rebuilt largely by volunteers and using donated materials after the 2019 bushfires. It is seriously one of the best built huts. I didn't take a lot of footage here because there were some guys here camping and they had their swag set up inside the hut, and you know, I don't like to get in people's personal space and film their gear and then put it up on YouTube. They're here trying to camp and relax and have a good time, so come and check the hut out for yourself, guys. It's really well built, recycled timber on the outside, and then it's fully lined internally, which is something you don't see on the old huts. Seriously, it's really well built. The volunteers that have rebuilt that have done an outstanding job. There's a great campground here, and there's also a long drop toilet as well. So again, this would be a great spot to camp, and I'm surprised there's not more people here. Actually, this is on a weekend. Could have been a Sunday, I think, so maybe there'd been more people here and they'd headed off. I can't remember exactly now. This was in early December, so a couple of months ago now. On the way out here, we'll pass O'Hagan's. Doesn't quite make it onto the camera footage. There are a lot more people at O'Hagan's campground. I think that's just a function of proximity to the roadway. Personally, I'd drive the extra 20 minutes and come in to Wheeler's Creek Hut every day of the week. So yeah, over the bridge here, crossing over Wheeler's Creek. Now Matt did tell me, I've never been here before, but Matt has been here years ago. He used to have an 80 series. So yeah, how about that? Trippy Matt used to have an 80 series. He has been here before, and there used to be a creek crossing that you could drive next to the bridge there, but it's not there anymore. It's been closed over by parks or whatever, and there's the only crossing is the bridge crossing. So heading west from Wheeler's Creek Hut back towards the Benambra-Corryong Rd, track heads up on the side of the hill, and like a lot of high country tracks, you've got a drop off on one side and sort of the hill or a cliff on the other side. Late afternoon sun coming in. This is a really nice drive. This track's in really good condition. It's not super wide, you wouldn't want to meet too much traffic coming the other way, but it's a really nice drive. You can see that drop off on the left hand side. It's definitely something to keep note of. Part way along here we pass 6 Mile Ridge Track on the right hand side, so on the inside edge of that corner, yeah, it's a pretty sharp corner, but on the inside edge there's a track actually going straight up on that ridge line. Apparently that leads up to another hut, the guys that were down at Wheeler's Creek Hut. I think it could be the Lind Lodge Hut or something. They recommended we check that out. We didn't have time for that today because it was late in the afternoon on a Sunday, I'm pretty sure, and we all had to go to work the next day, so save that one for another trip, another time, and we continued on heading west here. And as I said, look, just a super scenic drive along here. You got glimpses of the river or the creek down in the bottom of the valley, and the sun coming in. Just really nice drive, and yeah, not difficult at all. So again, if you're looking for high country huts that you can go and check out and you don't have to worry too much about how difficult it might be, Wheeler's Creek Hut, definitely put it on the list. That was the access just there on the right hand side to O'Hagan's campground. There were about 6 or 8 people down there, so there's a couple of groups down there. It was pretty full. If I was them, I would have driven down to Wheeler's Creek. Look, here the river's maybe a little bit bigger. Now coming up here, we're crossing the river again. That track you can see on the left hand side there is the Zulu Creek Track, which actually goes up to the Boar track that we were originally going to take. Again, Matt has driven that in his 80 series some years ago. Apparently it's pretty steep, or it used to be, and a little bit loose. Not for today, but another time.
So the access here, Zulu Creek Track. Run up and around a little bit and then it just goes straight up. That's the bottom of the track just over there. Looks to be longer than that, I thought. And it goes up there. Probably not for today. Not for today. But definitely on the list.
So there you have it. Not for today, but definitely on the list. I've seen some old footage from when Matt drove that with a group of his mates with his 80 series. Looks like a lot of fun. I don't know what condition the track's in now, but one to check out. But yeah, the access is a little bit hidden there. You drive sort of through the river and then up onto it from there. So from there out to the Benambra-Corryong Rd, it's a pretty short run. It's about 3 Ks. This road's in really good condition, and it's a little bit wider here as well. I guess maybe a function of being a little more regularly driven, and still very, very scenic. Typical for a lot of these high country tracks or roads. Fairly twisty as it follows the contours of the hills in and out. But definitely a good option if you're up in this area and you want to get through to a hut and you don't worry about if you've got to have a winch or whatever else. You could definitely come in through this way, no problem at all. And for those that are invariably going to ask, can I take my all-wheel drive there? I would even say in this instance, yes, you can take your all-wheel drive there. You get all the way into Wheeler's Hut, no problem at all. Yeah, so who's going to be the first one to tell me they got stuck in their all-wheel drive? Here we are rejoining the Benambra-Corryong Rd. Short run north here till we get back to the bitumen. So us and just about everybody else that wheels their four-wheel drive in this area usually wait until we get back to Staceys Bridge campground just after the bitumen starts again before airing back up, and that's exactly what we did today. Headed north, left the pressures down a little bit lower, and took out some of the corrugations on the gravel road here, and made our way back towards Staceys Bridge campground to air back up. So yeah, here we are just coming to the end of the gravel section. Bitumen starts again, and once you get back to there, you know it's not too far, just down around the corner to Staceys Bridge. Quite a popular free camp, this one. There's long drop toilets there on the left hand side. Normally this is where we pull into, just here to air down or air up depending which way we're going. Matt decided and suggested that maybe we pull into the campground where we can get a bit more shade. So we did just that. Cracking camp spot here though. Again, right at one of the gateways to the high country, nice grass campsites, really well worth considering. So quick stop there to air back up to road pressures. I usually go to about 39, not sure what Matt goes to. And we're back on the bitumen and heading off. So look, once again everybody, thanks everybody for watching. If you like this video, please think about subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate all the subscribers that join. If you got any questions, leave a question or a comment down below. Again, I really enjoy responding to those. And I'll leave you with us saying goodbye with a bit of drone footage here from the track. So thanks for watching. See you in the next video, guys.